Bountygate hits the NFL. The story broke Friday that the New Orleans Saints, under defensive coordinator Greg Williams, paid players for hits that injured opponents. Among the players injured by such hits, Brett Favre and Kurt Warner. Now, Williams has admitted his role in the scandal and apologized, but he is in New York today to meet with the commissioner, who is also investigating whether or not this same thing went on at Williams' other stops. He was, of course, a head coach in Buffalo, but he was an assistant with Washington, Tennessee, and Jacksonville. Now he's the D coordinator with Jeff Fisher in St. Louis. Which is worse? We had Spygate. Now we have Bountygate.
I'd probably have to say Spygate. I mean, Bountygate is, first of all, we're still trying to figure out the facts of what's going on and how long he's been doing this. But I think, as far
well, I don't know. We got pretty much on the table here, don't we?
But, Bountygate, to me, this whole bounty thing is, as a football player, you never heard the term bounty. That's one thing that you never heard in the locker room. Now, money came out of our pockets for big hits, big interceptions, big sacks, separating a guy from forcing a fumble or whatnot. Of course, as individuals, we put money on it, and every team does that.
Yeah.
Every single team does that. Now,
wait. You mean you have a pot?
Players throw money into a pot.
Money into a pot.
And it's awarded for positive plays, but never bounties.
It's never bounties.
Okay.
Never, it was never malicious as far as knocking a guy out, seeing him squirming on the ground, them carting him off. It was always within, it was controlled violence.
Right.
That's how we always played the game.
Who put the money in the pot?
Well, as the defensive backs, we may have put it.
Okay.
But it was never a team.
Fine.
For me, it was never a team type of deal.
It was always the players organizing it.
Always the players
organizing it. And never for injury.
And never for injury, and never coaches. This is what surprises me about this entire deal is that from top to bottom, that Greg Williams knows about, is highly involved in this. Loomis, the GM's in it, and I keep on hearing about Sean Payton possibly knowing something about it.
Yeah.
It never got to that point as far as me playing with the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
But as far as the big hits and rewards, that's always been a part of it. And it will always, it doesn't matter what goes on with the situation, the players are going to still do what we do in the locker room.
How much money are we talking about? I mean, I know you say the defensive backs throw money into a pot.
You may throw $50. You may throw $100.
Right.
We call it a note.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a note on this.
It's almost like a pride thing. It's just a few bucks. It's not the amount of money.
It's exactly what the PGA Tour does. I mean, the guys go out, they play this, this game around it, and they try to win that tournament. But at the same time, they're in the locker room doing side bets.
Yeah.
That's just a part of, that's the culture of what we do.
Okay, but they're not on a team, right? The PGA players. So, I was around your Cowboy teams for years and before you for years. I never heard of any systematic bounties anywhere but from Buddy Ryan. And these are all Buddy Ryan disciples that we're talking about, okay? Because Greg Williams learned under Buddy in Houston, and it all sort of trickled down from there. But have you ever heard of systematic bounties in other locker rooms?
Never heard of a systematic bounty.
Okay.
As far as the coaches being involved.
Correct.
Now, I've heard, around where players are, put together a bigger pot than we used to put together, but never something that was as organized as this. And I'm intrigued about the information that's come out, because I would have loved to have played in that type of system.
So you know, would you?
Yeah, because I think it's because when you get rewarded for those type of the big hits and whatnot, and you're rewarded in front of your teammates, in front of your peers, it becomes that much better. And it's not, and the money is not the issue. The $100 is not the issue. It's the reward of stepping up there and them saying, man, Rob, you laid some big hits.
But Darren, wait, specifically for injuring a guy, though?
No, not for injuring
a guy. Okay, but that's what we're talking about here. That's what this was.
When you said that you would love to play in a system like that, it implied that you meant...
Not injury.
Just big hits.
This the big hits, big interceptions and whatnot,
but how do you quantify a big hit? I mean, what exactly determines a big hit? In this case, it was carting a guy off, knocking him out for the game.
See, and that's where it gets a little gray for me as far as carting the guy out, because we've always played this game like it's a fraternity.
Right.
You never want to see, and you see the reactions.
Well,
when you see a guy.
Well, that's the part that bothers me so much about this is, first of all, guys are out there, no guaranteed contracts.
Right.
B, in any given play, your career could be over.
Correct.
And how many times have we been at football games where some guy's laying motionless on the turf, and your heart sinks because you don't know if he's going to move again. So the idea that some coach would put out to get a guy carted off or knocked out of the game with some hit for $1,500 repulses me.
Yep.
Just from that standpoint as being
It repulses.
in football. It does.
It repulses you.
No, not as. I'm not talking about a clean hit or a part of the game that it might have happened because you just hit him, but because you actually had somebody put in your head that you were trying to do this to somebody.
Yeah, but
there's a difference.
Okay, so which?
Okay, but still, I'm going to say.
I know what you're going to say.
Spygate is worse.
Yes.
Well, you've been killing New England for Spygate for years.
But you know why, Skip? Because that's out-and-out cheating where you're going. The whole essence of competing is about the best man. We go out. Right? We go out, we play, and the best team wins or the best player wins. When I'm going to go out and cheat and figure out what you do, that's not one-up. That's out-and-out cheating. So Spygate, to me, is worse than this, even though I'm not a bounty fan at all. I think that's terrible. But cheating, to me, hurts the integrity of the game more.
You guys are so wrong on this, both of you, because there's a much bigger potential advantage gained from Bountygate than from Spygate. I thought Spygate was overblown. The ability to have the coach's tape during halftime, that's what we're talking about, right? Okay, you still get your snapshots from the press box legally. Okay, well, you tell me, is that a huge advantage at halftime? Is that going to turn the tide in the game?
Maybe
not.
I think so. I think so.
Oh, come on.
That's why they got penalized.
Exactly. I can see where, we do. We get a lot of the tape. We get a lot of the pictures of what's going on in the game. But if you have information, even more information, you're always looking for an advantage.
Okay, remember, this is a bounty to knock the opposing quarterback out of the game. That was the essence of the bounty. Right. And again, that's by far the most important player on the field. And it worked against Kurt Warner. You can say it was dirty or not. I thought it was a dirty hit against Kurt Warner. Knocked him out of a playoff game against New Orleans at New Orleans.
That was a great hit.
Okay, it was borderline to me. You can argue it. But it was a bounty hit, man. And I'll bet he got paid. Who was it? McQuarrie got it. McQuarrie I'm sure he got paid off. And then Brett Favre took about 5 of those in the NFC title game. If he hadn't been Brett Favre, I think he would have been carted off. And by the way, that sped the end of his career. You know it and I know it because he never quite recovered from the hits he took in the NFC Championship game.
But that also didn't have anything to do with him throwing across his body and throwing a big interception at the end of the game.
He was a wreck by the end of the game. There were stories after the game. He was on the training table for like 3 hours after the game and could not get up.
Yeah, but we just heard Brett Favre just come out and just say, hey, listen,
that's football.
Part of the game.
Part of the game.
Kurt Warner said the same thing. It's a part of
Kurt
the game.
Warner did say any sort of program that's determined to eliminate the quarterback, he doesn't like it.
Yeah, and I totally get it. I mean, as far as knocking or trying to viciously hurt a guy, I get that part.
And
I mean,
remember,
I totally get that part.
Okay, you said that you were never on a team where they had a bounty system.
No,
let me ask you this. Were you ever on a team whose game plan was in part, let's get the quarterback out of the game. Not saying there was a bounty up for it, but
no doubt about it. And that's been the case. And if you're a defensive football player, first of all, let's start off this way. High school, they always tell you, you take the head, the body will fall. Who's the head? Quarterback most of the time.
Sure.
College, they tell you the same thing. You take the head, body's going to fall.
In essence, it's part of every game plan is to take the best player on the other team out of the game.
Well, wait a second.
But it's not something you want to just maliciously hurt a guy who you can't play again.
With a bounty, a sizable bounty, you are increasing the defensive lineman's motivation, the linebacker's motivation, to take a shot at a quarterback he might not usually take. Like a little gray area where he says usually he would pull off this one, but he's going to go.
But your mind is not in the game.
Okay, but
your mind is not thinking.
Then why do that then? Then if you just said it, then why even put up money if in the game you wouldn't act that way? I mean, there's a reason you're enticing somebody.
Yeah, but they could be fined $50,000 for a $1,000 bounty pot. That doesn't make sense.
A game within the game. It's just what we do in the locker room.
Okay.
And it's in every sport.
Okay.
They do the same thing.
And speaking of enticements, you are violating salary cap here because you're enticing players, maybe even a free agent player. You say, if you come here, you might make a few extra bucks here against the cap that won't count against the cap, right?
Well, what are we talking about?
Well,
I mean, even
50
if
grand, you know, like.
Well, if the pots were that big, sure.
Huge.
Well, that's what we're talking about in New Orleans.
Yeah, but I mean, that's over the course of a season, and when you consider what a player is signing for, even if it is $50,000 over the course of a season, you can be fined $50,000 for one illegal hit.
Yeah, but Jay, that's $50,000 tax-free.
Yep.
That's
Well, and that becomes another issue altogether. No, that becomes an IRS
That's
issue.
a whole nother issue.
That becomes an issue.
Tax-free. I mean, ask Uncle Sam or the IRS.
You know what? If I had guys in the locker room sat here and listened to this,
Yeah, well, I know,
they would just, it would be funny.
Right, I know.
Tell us what they would say. What would they say?
It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
It's a non-issue. I mean, the bounty part of it, the one that gets me is the fact that they've been, first of all, whoever came out and did the snitching part of this it's beyond me. And you ask any football
Well, you know,
player,
it's a disgruntled employee who didn't get paid. Who thought he was supposed to get paid and he didn't get paid.
Okay, now
or he used to be with the team and he's been released.
Yeah.
You know, it could be anybody.
Or you know what? I mean,
but
you know what? Everybody always wants to knock those guys, and I'm going to be the first one to stand up and say there are people who have stood up in life, who have snitched.
Yeah.
And you know what,
That's
Darren?
understandable.
And you know what? Life has become better because
I
we're
agree.
willing to stand up.
But I meant.